And I think maybe we can start on how Hubbard came up with Scientology. This we know, I mean, a lot of people know that, it started with Dianetics, and we know that he gave it to the psychiatric community and they basically laughed in his face.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the hatred for psychiatry came from. That's
the conjecture. That's the idea of it. Hubbard was a vindictive person. Personally, he did not like criticism, and he way before Scientology, this was just how he was. And so he would, as a usual course of practice, right? If somebody was criticizing him, giving him a bunch of crap, telling him his work wasn't any good or whatever, he would go on the attack, and he was very vicious about that. So Dianetics was initially, apparently, I mean, it's not like I've seen evidence that he did this, but apparently he tried to submit draft copies or works of his original thesis on the subject, and he put together these, rather superfluous case examples or case studies. And he sent this over to the APA and the AMA, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association. This was, I believe, in 1949. And they looked it over, and there is not one scientific thing in it.
Yes.
Not if you really know science, right? So there's no citations, there's no, there's no real experimentation, there's no documentation of experimentation. These case studies are the person's name, what they were suffering from, and how Dianetics relieved that. That's it. That's the case study. There's no testing. There's no nothing, right? So, so it's all kind of a big joke, and that's why the AMA and APA rejected it, right? They would have looked at it and said, "Well, this is poppycock, right? Go do some real work, and then come back." And Hubbard took that as criticism, and he responded accordingly, and he decided that wasn't the way to go, and he was friends with John Campbell, who was the editor of Astounding magazine. So he was a believer. John Campbell thought Hubbard was onto something. And John Campbell was the editor of one of the most popular magazines of the time in terms of where Hubbard could have published.
Yes.
So, because Hubbard had been publishing pulp fiction stories and of all kinds of genres in Astounding magazine and other pulp fiction magazines for years. He'd been doing that. He was a professional writer. So Campbell thought Hubbard was really on to something. And they published the initial work on Dianetics in the magazine, and then they published the actual book, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. And it was a raging bestseller. It took off. It was big. It went viral, so to speak.
Yes. Back then, what viral was, yes.
Yeah, exactly, right? It was a bestseller. And then it took off. And Hubbard didn't just publish the book and sit and collect royalties. He went out and started lecturing almost immediately and set up shop in New Jersey first, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and then went out to LA because they had set up an organization out there. Like, groups just started forming up of people taking this book and reading it and sitting down with somebody else who'd also read it and doing the Dianetics auditing procedure on one another. Which, like I said, is basically everybody learned how to hypnotize each other. I mean, it's kind of what happened. I mean, really, but it's a little bit different than that because it's mixed in with some Freudian stuff and their psychoanalysis stuff. I mean, it's this hodgepodge of crap. But it took off. People were very, very sensationalized by it. They felt like amazing because they were remembering stuff that they had totally forgotten about in their life and were like all amazed and delighted by these, by relieving all of their stress and trauma as what they thought they were doing with Dianetics, right? And this went on for months, actually, for all of 1950. Hubbard was sort of going back and forth in the United States, flying back and forth and lecturing. And then he wrote another book called Science of Survival and bankrupted the organizations. Eventually got a bailout by a millionaire in Kansas City. So then he set up shop in Kansas City and, Wichita, Kansas. And then that tanked. Hubbard tanked that one too, because he was an incredibly bad manager and he just spent money as fast as he got it. So then, bankrupted twice, he lost the rights to the copyright of Dianetics because the guy who bailed him out had it.
Yes.
So that's when he invented Scientology.
But
so
then how does...
Answer to the short question of
So how did he get Dianetics back then? Did he purchase the copyright back?
Yeah, what they did was actually one of the first fair game operations, one of the first like actual, pressure operations that Scientology launched was against the guy who had bailed him out. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. It's not coming to me right now, but Purcell. That was it. It was Purcell. So he had the copyrights, and in 1954, I believe, Hubbard finally got it back. I think there was a lawsuit and stuff, and Purcell just moved on. He thought Dianetics was going to be the thing, and he wanted to invest in it. That's why he gave Hubbard the bailout, only to learn, like everybody else who had ever trusted Hubbard came to learn, he was a scumbag, right? He couldn't be trusted. He would steal you. He would take your money. He'd take your girl. He'd do whatever he could, and he was going to rip you off. That was Hubbard's thing. So Purcell learned that too late, and then he just wanted to wash his hands of it and just get the whole thing off his plate. And he ended up either giving it back or through court lost the copyright, and Hubbard got it back. Anyway, through whatever chicanery, he got it back, and that's when Dianetics and Scientology unified in 1955.
I'm very surprised the psychiatrists and those associations didn't say anything to the IRS or anything to maybe when they got their tax exemption the first time to say, this is what he did a couple months ago, a year or so ago with us, and now he's taking he's making it a religion. So this is not new. This is not a religion. He tried to make this a psychiatric practice, and now he's made a religion because we said no. So I don't understand why those associations didn't go to the IRS and say, well, yeah, this is why it's not a religion.
No, the IRS is never, ever, ever going to judge whether a group is validly a religion or not. What the IRS has is a checklist of things that you have to meet in order to qualify for tax-exempt status under the IRS 501c3 tax code. And what they do is they grant you status as a religious organization, 501c3, if you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. And almost anyone can pull off A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They are incredibly easy to do. So easy that John Oliver set up his own nonprofit church under 501c3. He did the exact steps you need to do, and he got a valid nonprofit church organization set up called the Church of Immaculate Donations or something. And it was a big joke, but he did it for his show to prove how lax the IRS is in granting tax-exempt religious status to almost any organization that asks for it, if they have a creed, if they have that can show that there is some sort of worship or prayer or supernatural service. Because remember, Buddhists and pagans can be religions too. You don't have to have a prayer to Jesus or a cross in order to be a religion, right? Wiccans are religion. The Church of Satan is a religion. The Scientology is a religion. The Buddhists, the Lamaists, the Confucianists, all of these are religions. So it's a very broad thing. And the thing that they are missing in terms of a critique, the thing the IRS doesn't have in its list of requirements that, say, the United Kingdom has, the public benefits test. They did get official church recognition in 1956. And that was the IRS. And then there were court cases, because those are two different things. You get legally recognized as a religion in the courts, and that's another point of foundational support and solidification that you are a religion is when there's a court case and the courts recognize you as a religious organization. So that was that. Both of those things happened in the 1950s, I believe, and they kept that tax exempt status as a church until 1967, and then they lost it, and then they got it back in '93. Yeah, I believe that question was in reference to the L Ron Hubbard Library, or L Ron Hubbard Life Exhibition. That is in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, at this building they have. The whole first floor of this building, it's an old bank building, and they hollowed out the first floor and created this life exhibition of Hubbard. And the end of the exhibit, it takes you about an hour to go through it, and they give you this whole bullshit story about Hubbard's life. And then at the end are this overwhelming number of plaques and awards and certificates and ranks and bullshit that Hubbard got. And it's intended to overwhelm you with how amazing Hubbard is for having, it's just wall after wall after wall opens, and it's just all these, ridiculous certificates and stuff. And yes, I have seen that. And I did not learn even about the concept of stolen valor, much less how Hubbard did that. And after I got out of Scientology, I thought all that stuff was true, and Hubbard really was a war hero, but he not. He was a scumbag. He really did engage in stolen valor. Yes. He made claims that he got awards, that he got a Purple Heart, that he got all this other stuff that he did not get and did not earn, and should never. And the church has just been shameless in how they have perpetuated this nonsense about Hubbard's life story.
I know that he got ribbons, I think you called them ribbons, from countries he didn't even serve for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. This is so well documented. There have been a couple people, Chris Owens and another guy whose name escapes me right now, on Tony Ortega's blog, fairly recently, I think within the last 2 months, they posted an article about breaking down ribbon by ribbon, campaign bar by campaign bar, what Hubbard claimed he earned, and then how it was all actually bullshit. There's probably 2 people in all of Scientology who actually know the truth about Hubbard's stolen valor. Not a lot of people. It's not like Scientologists are all in on this. If I understand the question right, that would be like if a new Scientologist was asking, hey, how come the organization's so secretive? And what they would be told is, well, look at all the lies that are told on the internet every single day. Everything about us that you read on the internet is a lie. You are not, I mean, unless you go to Scientology.org, our own this is Scientologist speaking now, right? I'm not saying that this is true. I'm just answering the question. Yes. They would say, well, go to Scientology.org, because everything else you're going to read about Scientology on the internet is going to be from people who either have an axe to grind, or who are being paid to attack us, or who have a vested interest in you not succeeding or doing well. They want to suppress you. They want to keep you down. They want you to have a bad life, because the more you're suppressed, the more power and influence they have. And it's very nebulous, sort of us versus them kind of, in-group, out-group sort of thing. But that's how they would address that. That's how they would talk about that. And I used to say shit like that. So